God bless you, Pastor. And again, all the saints, I just thank God for being here. Just would like to say a little prayer before we get started. Dear Heavenly Father, we come for you with a heart of thanksgiving and praise, and just feel honored that you have chosen me to be the facilitator, the deliverer of this message. I just ask that that the words that come out of my mouth are words that you want, that and the ears hear with the words that the lesson that you want them to hear. Lord, I just ask that you just continue to lead me and guide me in the direction that I should go in. I'm here to serve, and I'm so very thankful again. I just ask that you continue to bless all of us as we go forward to be the great stewards that of your word and of your works. I ask this and all blessings in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. We're going to get started. Okay. So we have been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. Some of you may be, I just always like to kind of refresh everybody's memory very quickly. We are talking about stewardship, and particularly over finances this week. And we have defined what stewardship is, what a good steward is. We have gone through and have read about what the Bible says about money, in particular finances, and what we should be doing with those. And now we're going to focus a little bit on our own personal finances. And so we're going to go through this. And one of the things that I really, really want to share is something that I've shared with you earlier, is that if you have any questions about anything that is being discussed here, I'm more than happy to let you know. I am just providing information that I am aware of. I've sought out information. I've been, taking courses, reading, and things like that. I am not a financial advisor. Everything will not apply to you. Everyone's finances and situations are different. What all I'm trying to do is provide some information that you can pick and choose what would be most helpful for you. So again, right now we're going to kind of start talking about our personal finances. And, you start with one, budgeting. Here we have, and I went over this really quickly at the end. It says that if you are not following a budget, then you're not managing your money. You're not being a good steward. All you're doing is, if it comes in, it's going out, you have no idea what's going on. So when you do not have a budget, you really have no way of knowing how much money you're spending each month and how much room you have for savings, expenses, and income for it to allow. As Pastor said, we need to be planning, taking advantage of what we have today and looking to tomorrow. If you're serious about meeting financial goals, then you first need to start keeping track of the money that you earn, the money that you spend, and the money that you save. And and good reasons to budget is to avoid debt, improve savings, which improves, gives us the ability to have something for the future, and making a commitment just to be financially responsible. Stewardship, responsible. Of course, we always want to go to the word. This is something that I shared earlier. I believe I shared this with you in the first week. I'm going to go through this very quickly. I have since updated, and as we get through, and I've rearranged some of the slides since last week. And what I did is I brought this to this week so that we could just kind of go through it. But the first steps in financial planning is to set priorities, make a plan, create a budget, build an emergency fund, avoid debt, diversify investments, and reduce risk. And we went through all of this and we shared it, and we even had discussions about it. And their scriptures are here to support these things. This is what I found in the Bible to support what I'm saying. And so when you have an opportunity to go over this a little bit more, but I wanted to let you know that as I'm going through this and sharing this with you, there are biblical verses that support the message that I am bringing to you today. Okay. So, like with anything, and I've said this before, you got to know what we're talking about, and these are words that we're going to be talking about as we go through this discussion this evening. And we need to define and just make it really clear. So I'm going to just kind of read through all of this. And if anyone has any questions about a particular definition here or an item here that you don't understand, then please raise your hand. We are going to try to keep the some of the comments and things, just so that we can try to get through everything. And then at the end, we'll be able to ask questions. So if we don't get to you, please don't take offense to that. Write down whatever your question is. You can send it to myself. You can send it to Pastor, and we'll be happy to, go over that with you. But these are some of the things words that we need to know, and definitions. So the first one, when you're trying to do a budget, is the difference between the first two. There's a need, and then there's wants. Needs are something that is for basic survival. So I could say, or make it simple. Obviously, I have an affinity for food because I'm always using that as an analogy. But basically, you need, shelter, clothing, and food and water. Those are things that you need to survive. Okay. And then, like, just looking at, shelter. You don't need to live in a mansion. You just need to have a roof over your head, walls, and some heat to protect you from the cold. The extra things that would be nice, if you had a place to sleep and a place to eat. Minimal. Those needs are minimal. Wants are the extras, something that you desire that's going to make it a little more comfortable. Well, it might be a little bit more comfortable if you've got 10 people to be in a space in a shelter that's bigger than 750 square feet. But all we need is somewhere where we can be. So just kind of when you're looking at budget line items, and you go in and you need to evaluate first, setting priorities. And that's what we said before. Setting your priority is deciding on what is necessary, what it is that you need versus what it is that you want, the extra. Value, the belief or idea that you consider that thing to be important. Now, a want could be important, but is it necessarily does it necessarily prioritize over a need? It can be, again, even your wants and desires should be prioritized, because the reality is that, yes, it is not impossible for God to give us everything, but sometimes we are not in a position in our stewardship to be able to manage more than what it is that we've received. As we go through into the budgeting portion, that we have short-term goals, mid-term goals, and then long-term goals. And that's where some of the wants might be, like a short-term goal might be a vacation. A mid-term goal might be that, you're planning and budgeting for a new car, okay? And then a long-term goal could be a retirement, And again, it goes back to what it is that you desire, want, need, and how much value you put on that. Expenses. It's the cost to obtain something. And I'm not intending this to, please do not take this as I'm not talking down or anything like this. I just want to make it plain and simple as it can be. Just expenses, the cost to obtain anything. Expenses are what we have to pay for shelter, food, clothing, transportation, all of these things. Those are expenses. Fixed expenses usually are monthly payments that are the same amount. Your mortgage, your rent, car payment. These are things that, that you pay every month, probably on the same day, and, and the amount remains constant and the same. Okay. Variable expenses. These are amounts that are due, that every time, excuse me, these amounts vary every time that it's due. So I would say PG&E, although it's a fixed expense, it is also a variable expense because it is based on how much you use. Now, some people have the ability to have their PG&E. I happen to be on a program that my PG&E is set based on my usage last year. So this month, I know every month how much my PG&E is going to be. No matter how much I use, it's going to be. And it balances out in the summertime because I use less to no heat. Say water bill. You're not, that's another thing. It depends on the amount that you're using. So when you're going in and doing these budget line items, it's your income versus your outgo, which is your expenses. And then the remainder is what we'll be talking about as savings and reallocation of funds. Periodic expenses, usually due every quarter, 6 months, or yearly. Sometimes that is insurance. Sometimes property taxes is something that is a variable. A periodic expense. It doesn't happen, every single month. It's just, it can vary. And we have to remember those, those expenses that you don't want to gotcha, one of those gotcha expenses. We know ahead of time, April 15th, we know that we got to do our income tax, reconciliation, and you've got to be prepared for that, and there's just, like I said, there's just variable things that you can set up your car insurance to be periodic versus monthly, but that's one of those. Our tithes and offerings is something, and we've all heard that. We hear it every Sunday usually, and always on the first Sunday about that. There's 1/10 of your annual income and charity that we, that's the income, and then the charity is our offerings that we give. And if you are on limited income, you can budget for those as well. As I was mentioning before, we know in January, church anniversary, men's conference, women's conference, first ladies appreciation, pastors appreciation, just our annual, we have annual church expenses as well that you can fit into your budget so that you're not caught off guard, at the end. And then income. Income is money that you receive on a regular basis, which is usually from employment or investments. It can be inheritances. It can be, whatever. You can have somebody writing you a check every month. You can count that as income. If something that any amount of money that you bring in is income and needs to be monitored and, looked at as what it can do to cover your needs and or wants and expenses. Does anybody have any questions about that? Does anybody have raising their hand about any of these things that I've said? Not quite sure. Want me to go a little bit more into detail? I can't see everybody.
I don't see any hands.
Okay, then we'll move on. On the first week that I sent this out, the presentation, I did send out a budget form, and it's one that you can actually just go in and just add in your numbers, and it will actually go in and it has your income, paycheck, salary, after taxes, benefits, check cashing fees, other income, and as your income, and you start with that, and then you start to subtract those expenses and or that you have that you're responsible for. So a budgeting checklist. You have to track your expenses and every single expense. We talked a little bit about last week about some ways that you can do budgeting besides a spreadsheet. I know that Missionary Ivory mentioned the envelope system, and I know that that works. Another way to use envelopes is that I keep one in my purse, or you keep it in your car or whatever. And every single receipt, regardless of what it is, just stick those in there. And then you can, if you don't have time to go in and update your budget right away, at least you have it. And tracking your expenses are very, very important, because sometimes people don't realize how much money they're spending on any one thing. If there's money in the bank and, or there's money on that ATM card, you just go and do it. And, you don't think about it. But if you start tracking your expenses, it's going to become very important later on as we start talking about budgeting. identifying your after-tax income. So after-tax income is, your boss tells you you're making $50,000 a year. Okay. Your budget isn't $50,000 because there are going to be taxes taken out of that. So your check is going to be a lot, what you take home, what you have to live on is going to be less. That's already subtracted off the top. You don't have a choice. So now you've identified that. Then you need to calculate your expenses versus income, which I mentioned earlier. And then you set payoff goals, because we also talked about debt. And Pastor mentioned last week, he said, I had a car payment of $300. And once I made that last payment, I thought I had $300 to spend. It's very similar to what I said before. You don't have $300 to spend if you have other debt. Being responsible and a good steward is that you take that and you start to pay off the other debt. You want to be debt free. You don't want to be beholden to anybody. That causes extra stress, and it's just not necessary. It's, like Pastor said, you can't concentrate on anything else because now, oh, wow, but you take that $300 and start doing something else with it instead of paying off that debt, then that debt's going to still eat at you, And I said it, and I think several other people said it. Now, I'm not saying you don't have to take that whole $312. You can take a majority of that and add it to the debt, because you do need to, you've worked hard. So please remember to reward yourself, because like anything, if you feel deprived, all of this goes out the window. If you can't see that you're accomplishing something, or that you're not getting some kind of joy out of this, however small it is, maybe you had to, for whatever reason, didn't have enough money, you had to cut out date night. Well, now we have 300. So, you know what? We can do date night. Date night might be at home with a pizza. Date night, it doesn't mean that you got to go out and buy a new dress, because we're going to go into the town, spend the night and all that stuff. So again, it's being responsible and managing that. What I did is I pulled also on the right side of the page, I put in budgeting categories. Now, these categories are going to be different for everyone. Everyone doesn't have a mortgage. Some people may not be responsible for their rent. So maybe that's not a line item that they have to worry about. So if going through this, and then you're going to have some other things on here, like I have an alarm system on my home. That's not on here, but I add that onto my budget line item. So you will see that there's line items that, and if something that you don't need, like this, like if you don't have cable, then you don't need a line item there for cable, but but just keep track of everything else that you're doing, anything that you're spending on a regular basis. One of the things, utilities, we talked a little bit about that, food, groceries, again, managing that. In each one of these things, you can be a good steward over. It's like groceries. It's like, okay, we know that there's other things that can help you with that by making a menu, by going in and predetermining how much food that you need and what meals you're going to make. And then you can also, sometimes it's not going to be, we can't have steak every night. We might only be able to have steak once a month, but it's just, those are some things that want and need. You need to eat, but you may want to eat, you need to eat, but you want to have steak, but you don't have steak money. So, you have to look at things like that. Transportation. This is one of the things when you give that baby a car, for, you give, especially kids, you give somebody a car, or you win a car on The Price is Right. So I got a car, woo, there comes expenses with that car. You have to put gas in it. There's maintenance for this car. There's car insurance. So again, when you look at all of these things, it's more to it than, somebody gives you a house. Woo! Somebody gave me a house, or somebody gave me money to buy a house. When you go to do something like that, there comes additional expenses that are needed. So keep in mind, when you're getting something that you want, how much is it really going to cost? So that new car that you want to get is $5,000. Woo, I'd say to my $5,000, I'm done. No, you're not done. Again, there's additional expenses that you need to take into consideration. We need to worry about medical. So everybody, most people in the state of California, you're supposed to have medical insurance. So most of us do have that medical insurance. But some of us have to pay extra because of different things, and such. So some people have to pay for their medical insurance. Some people's medical insurance is paid by their job. And sometimes there's a copay that you have to pay. They pay some, you pay some. So you got to, keep track of that. Got to keep track of your debts, credit cards, loans, and anything along that. I mean, whether it's personal loans or loans that you've taken from an establishment. Then you've got accounts, checking account. Usually you need that so that you can pay your expenses. And then you have something else to refer back to for your records, because that canceled check that comes in. So you got to learn how to balance your checking account as well. I talked about this the first week. I have $500 and I paid all my expenses and it's $400. And then I know that I have $100, and that $100 is that's my allowance that I get to spend that month. Okay. So I go somewhere and they say, oh, well, it's going to be $150. And then I look in my account, I said, oh, I got $350. Okay, so I'm like, no. Again, you have to remember, you've already committed that money. So you only have, again, that's where you look at your budget line items. And there's two things that you need to do when you're tracking that as well. Put in what you estimate and what your actual is going. And you may find that, you know what, I've estimated this to be a lot higher, especially in the variable line items, like for food. That's something that you can kind of maybe play with a little bit. Gas, you can play with a little bit because you know how much it really costs to go to work and back. But you want to go on this long trip, then that's something that you need to plan for, because that's not part of your monthly budget. And again, income, the sources, whatever that monthly amount is. Anybody have any questions on this so far? Okay. You'll keep going.
No hands.
Okay. Okay. So something else that I wanted to talk about, there's so many areas that I'm trying to get this out of the way. There's other aspects that we need to manage as well. And our credit is one. And especially when you are talking about buying a house or buying a car and, and getting credit. So you need to check and manage your credit score. There's nothing more frustrating than finding out, and this happens to a lot of people, and Pastor probably can testify to this as well. You think, oh, I've been doing real well or something like this, but back when you was a teenager or right out of college, and you didn't pay that college loan like you were supposed to because you deferred it and you forgot about it, or there was some dentist bill that you thought, yeah, you're not gonna pay that, or things like this. And this comes up and you got some explaining to do, because these people are going to lend you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you didn't pay that $3,000, again, being a good steward over your debt, you didn't pay that $3,000. Why am I going to lend you $100,000 on a house? You might decide not to pay for that, So anyway, getting back to this, these are the three major credit bureaus. I've given this information, and again, we're going to send this out to you so that you'll have all this information. One thing that is so nice, you can contact each one of these bureaus once a year, and they will give you a free credit report. Every year, you can get a free credit report at least once a year. However, there are some, you can also go online. You can also go online and get your free score and more at creditkarma.com and Credit Sesame. And they also do that. And on these free credit, Credit Karma and Credit Sesame, and there's others that you go on, they also provide financial information. And this is, again, please remember, all of this, even with them, is just financial information. Okay. And you can go in, set up an account, and you can check your credit score. I check my credit score often. And the other thing that I didn't mention, which is very important, is that we know that there's a lot of identity theft that goes on. You may find out that you technically own a house in another state. Things like that happen. So if you're watching this, there's tools as well for each one of these. You can lock your credit, lock your credit so that, that nobody can get credit, or you're notified anytime somebody applies for credit. And I don't believe that there's any cost for that. I've oftentimes done that, just to make sure that if you know that you're not, like you're in a position right now, lock your credit, because you're trying to pay off debt. You don't need any more credit. Just make sure that you're getting the credit that you have current, and you're watching for that. Make sure that you get all this stuff corrected ahead of time. It takes a lot of time sometimes. If you run into something like identity theft, or sometimes if you are like pastor, he's a senior and he's got his son that's a junior and a third, sometimes sometimes that gets mixed up. Now you wonder why, but it does, just by the name. Sometimes those kind of things get, messed up. So again, you need to go and check your credit score, because it's invaluable for when you want to purchase big ticket items. Okay. Anybody have any questions about credit or this portion of it? Nope.
Sister
Pastor?
Beverly, I was just gonna say, it is important to kind of focus on this credit for people to take this. Credit is absolutely critical to doing anything, maneuvering in this society that we're in. So you want to get that credit up as high as you possibly can, preferably above 680, 640, 680. So they have, as you said, they have these places where you can go. And actually in banks like Patelco, Chase, and I know those two banks that I deal with, but I'm sure Bank of America and Wells Fargo as well. They have free, you can just click on and they'll tell you what your credit score is right there. And Chase calls it credit journey. And I can click on anytime I want. It doesn't come against my numbers or anything, and I can see right where I am. It'll tell you what's coming against you on what bills are against you and those kind of things. And I have actually disputed some things that came up on my credit that were not mine, as well as things that had been paid off some time ago that still showed up on my credit. So
yeah, it's very, very important. And I'm going to give you a little tidbit of advice. You only need one credit card right now to start off, and you really don't need, back in the day, because again, they want, everybody's getting credit cards, and that's why so many Americans are like $15,000-$20,000 in debt from credit. A credit card, credit has to be used as a last resort, because when you use that credit card, you're telling me that you cannot afford this item that you're paying for. However, sometimes credit cards can be used for, water heater goes out, or washer and dryer goes out, and you haven't saved up for that, you don't have enough in savings or something like that. But again, don't go out and you don't need to get a lot of credit cards, and as you start getting your credit score up and things like that, there's other things that will give you credit, like your mortgage, or even PG. Now you can put your PG&E bill. If you're really diligent about paying your PG&E bill, that increases your credit score. On these sites, they also tell you how this is what you need to do to do this. But the most important thing is to pay, and pay on time. There's no, what do they say? Rob Peter to pay Paul. Paul and Peter need to be both paid, because if one of them going to tell the credit people, well, they pay me sometimes, but they don't pay me all the time. Again, that affects your credit score. Having too many accounts sometimes can affect your credit score, So again, just do your homework. Again, like I said, this is just information I'm passing along, only information. Research your own to see what best helps you. Okay. Any questions? Any comments? Okay. One hand.
Yeah, I have a comment.
Okay.
I just want to say that with Credit Karma, because I'm signed up with them, when anything changes with your credit score or credit cards or whatever, they'll send you an email. So it's good to be signed up with Credit Karma. Yeah, anything changes, they'll send an email saying, whatever it is, something change in your credit score, some added to your credit report, whatever.
Mhm.
So they're pretty good with that.
That's great.
Mhm.
Brother
Anybody?
Clinksville has his hand raised.
Brother Kingsale?
Yes, mine is a question.
Mhm.
Like sometimes with credit card, it's not that I like need to use it, but
Mhm.
I try to call myself manipulating the credit card by
Mhm.
buying something with it and then like making, just paying it off
Mhm.
with the money that I would have just bought or used, to pay for it anyway, to
Mhm.
see if they'll like increase the amount on there to like increase the amount of credit for you.
Mhm.
Is that a way to like try to help get your score up? Because
It
I
does.
thought,
It absolutely does. And another thing that it's the other thing is too, if you use a credit card like yourself, I've done this. I had this money's in the bank right there. I go in, I buy this item. I go in and I buy this gift or whatever. They ring it up. After they ring it up, I write a check and I pay it off. It shows the charge on there and it shows that I made a payment. So anytime there's a transaction, that helps. The other thing that helps is paying off, like you said, it's not really cheating the system. It's a really good tactic to use. Is I use a credit card to pay for everything. And this particular credit card gives me points. So it helped, so just know that you know what your budget is. So I know that I've got um, uh, I spend $2,000 a month on expenses. And if I charge everything on that credit card before that credit card is due, I write the check, that money that's the $2,000 is in the bank, that needs to pay off that credit card. So now you are definitely building up credit. So there's tricks like that, you want to look for, especially if your credit score is not that great, then your interest rate is going to be higher. So you have to remember that. So that's even more important for you to, and after a while, you'll start, your credit score goes up, then they'll start sending you things that says, hey, you can get this credit card for, that's why I say they serve up, different credit cards for you. The first credit card you get, don't get a credit card that you have to pay a fee on. There's too many credit cards out there that you don't have to pay a fee on. That's money you're throwing away. So there's enough credit cards out there that you do not have to pay a fee. So look at things like that. Check the interest rate, to see what that's going to be, because you never know, but you don't want to be paying 23, 24% on something. Do not, once you get your credit card, you shouldn't be paying the minimum balance anyway, because it should be paid off every single month, because that just helps you, because otherwise you're carrying debt. But if you pay, if you want to be paying that credit card off every single month, because you don't want to be giving them money. That's how they make their money, so that's just a little bit that's something that I learned, that so hopefully that was helpful. Anybody else?
Pastor?
I was going to say, please be careful, saints of God, because a couple of things. One is that, as Sister Beverly just said, sometimes when your credit is reasonably good, they'll begin to send you card offers. You get an extra this if 2 months without a payment, the first 90 days and no payment. But oftentimes we don't have the ability to pay what we purchased off in the 90 days. And so then the interest rate skyrockets to something, as she said, in the 20%, 19, 20, 24%, and sometimes higher than that. And so then it makes it even more difficult to ever pay that thing off. And I wanted to encourage you, as she said, you should pay it off every month, but if you can't, you should never just pay the minimum. You should always pay more so that you're paying that credit card off, because otherwise you're giving, that's how they're making their money. You don't need a whole lot of credit cards. She said a credit card is good. That's what you need for rental a car or going to a hotel or those kinds of things. But all the deals, so you can flip out your wallet and show that you got, MasterCard, American Express, Bank of America, all of that stuff. That kind of impression type thing does not work for most folks.
Yeah. Okay. So I had, does anybody have any questions regarding budgeting, budgeting categories, what you should be tracking, what you shouldn't be tracking, how to set up a budget first by tracking what your expenses are versus what your income is, and then you'll see that variable. Now, we're praying that your income is going to exceed what your expenses are. However, if it doesn't, then again, we go back to prioritizing. So we need to decide what things can we eliminate, because you're not going to get any more money. When I was working for corporate, sometimes I was working on an event, they gave me a budget. If I wanted some more money because I want to do something else, sometimes I could go back to finance and, plead my case. We don't have any, most of us can't go to our job and say, hey, I want to do something. Can you give me some more money? That's not the case. So it's living within your means. So if you only have this much money, this is what you have to do. So you go through your line items and you look at them, and you have to decide in areas where you can eliminate something to bring that budget. Your budget and your income should be equal. Okay. And if not, you should have extra so that you can use that for savings, investing, or, a special event or whatever. Something that Pastor said as well, it's very important. Do not keep your savings in your checking account. That does not, because, it's like, okay, so you start to, that's where that okay, well, how much is savings and how much is my budget and what am I supposed to be doing and stuff like that. And you have a tendency to start eking away at that money, and then pretty soon it's gone, so, set it up. When you get a certain amount of money, put it into some kind of, CD fund or whatever. I mean, I don't know all the particulars and what would be good for you, but there's ways of taking that money. Again, the key is so that you don't have to work hard, you work smarter. Make your money work for you. Okay. So as I was contemplating over this week, I attended a class through my credit union. They offered it last week. And so it was on living trust and estate planning. So part of financial planning and stewardship is also, this category is ongoing, and there's much more to this. And as you keep going in, you're going to see more. So living trusts and estate planning. Okay. And estate planning is not only about finances. It also, you have to have a plan to manage your health, financial decisions, that you should find yourself in a situation when you are unable to do so, if you become incapacitated, and being able to ultimately distribute your property to chosen heirs and beneficiaries in manner you so wish. You can do this quickly, privately, and cost effectively. Okay. Again, like I said, people can only convey information that they know. So my parents, fortunately, I was able to, after I was educated, I went back and helped them. But my mom and dad didn't, my mom and dad were probably older than I am right now before they even knew anything about, a trust and what's the difference between trust and a will and things like that. So right now, high level, I'm just going to go through this stuff. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions, or if somebody's on the line that can respond to them questions, if anyone has it, you are welcome to help out with this. But I'm going to go through the living trust and estate planning, because all of this as well, because some of us will have money that we want to leave to our relatives, whether it's children or friends or to some kind of organization or whatever. So proper estate planning is not just finances, but managing your health and, as well. Who needs to do estate planning? Everyone, every single person, budgets, everyone needs to be doing budgeting. Everybody needs to be doing estate planning right now. You do not need to be wealthy or to have a lot to have an estate plan. You simply need to have possessions or money, even the smallest amount, that it can be passed on. Additionally, estate planning refers to medical and health procedures power of attorney documents that make your wishes are carried out if you are unable to make these decisions on your own behalf. Okay. When my parents became ill, they happened to have this. So I was appointed. I had power of attorney. So anything that they needed to do, and my father suffered from dementia, so he could not make those decisions. Had we not put that in place, if that hadn't been there, if I didn't have proof that I was able to do that, then I would have had to go to court, file papers, and some of this stuff is a matter of, do we do the operation or not do the operation? Do we do, these are things, something as simple as that, whether he had to sign a document so that the doctor could even talk to me about this. So these are things that, that people run into. And when you're grieving and you're upset and things like that, and it doesn't help not to be in control, because that just exasperates the thing. So again, planning, doing it ahead of time, taking care of this before you need to. So one of the other things that I was talking about, it says, oh, I need to move this out of my way. Okay. Probate. What is probate? Probate is the court procedure used to change title of assets from the name of the individual who has passed away and living beneficiaries. And sometimes there's reason why people don't want to give people money, and sometimes it's for their own good, or they won't use it for their own good. But also it takes care. So guess who gets taken care of first? Creditors and anybody that has claims for debts and things like that. I'm so sorry. This is just my, okay. And it's also where creditors or descendant file claims to collect their debts, and where interested parties who have a complaint regarding the deceased can file their complaints. It's a will contest. Even without a contest, probate can be costly. That means you have to pay for it, consuming and taking away anywhere from 9 months to 2 years to complete in California. Probate is also a public proceeding. Okay. So talking a little bit about a revocable living trust. A revocable living trust is a legal document that holds title or ownership to your real property and all other assets. When you create this, you transfer ownership of your assets into a trust. Transferring these assets is called funding. When you transfer title, so my home is in a trust. So you do not relinquish ownership or control. Okay, it is one of those, for a better name, loophole that you can, that you do. It's something, it's to your advantage, to do this. Okay, it helps. You can still buy, sell, borrow, and transfer it. It includes the details and instructions for how you want your estate to be handled at your death, who will have the authority to do so. You have to identify somebody that you trust, and it gives control over these assets to leave to your minor children or grandchildren. Revocable living trusts are most commonly created for the following reasons. You want to avoid probate, you want to have control, and you want to reduce estate taxes. Sometimes people say, oh, my inheritance. Well, depending on what that inheritance is, you might end up paying more than half, if not 75, 80% of it in taxes. So this is a way to get around that. And this is something that just kind of, just start reading about this, start asking questions about it. What happens if you die without a trust? Okay, very important. We all live in California. If you die interstate in California with real property totaling over $55,000 and personal property over $167,000 roughly in gross value, the transfer of your property is accomplished through a court supervised proceeding, which we talked about, probate, that generally takes a minimum of 9 years, typically, or a year or more. These proceedings generally are very expensive, time consuming, and tie up the property for several months or years. Okay. During that time, somebody's got to maintain that property. You can, yes, you can turn the, if no one's living there, you can turn off all the, utilities and stuff like that, but the property itself still needs to be maintained. Property taxes still need to be paid, So again, it's one of those things. You get a free car, but there's other expenses that come along with that. Incapacity, that's what we talked about before. How do you plan for that? It's a broad area of laws that covers how you are cared for if you become physically, mentally unable to care for yourself. This type of care could range from simple tasks like buying groceries, paying bills, handling financial matters, to more important decisions like selling a estate, making medical decisions. Depending on the needs of the individual or family, incapacity planning could include a number of planning techniques, such as durable powers of attorney for assets and the advanced health care directives. Again, these are things that I have personally experienced, and it's really very important. So I made a list of this is for a comprehensive estate plan. Again, depending on what your state is, you may not need all of these things, but what's most important is you go through this list and you check and you figure out what it is that these each one of these are, and it helps so that you can determine what documents need to be included in your estate plan. Okay, a detailed estate planning, the living trust, a summation of relevant trust provisions, like how much somebody's going to get. This trust is kind of like in a account. So again, that needs to be defined. The declaration of intent, a pour over will. That I don't know what that is. I'm going to tell you straight up, I don't know what that is. Advanced health care directive, that is again like, I had to determine, I had a discussion with my parents, if they don't want to be resuscitated, or things like that. HIPAA, that's the privacy thing. So if that's not taken care of, you don't have access to this. The durable power of attorney for asset administration, deed transferring for primary residence into the trust, detailed successor trustee manual, again, outlining, usually it's not just one person. You have, you can do, there's successor trustees. Maybe you decide you got to set it up like the government. We need to have Congress, and we got to have two parties here so that both people sign, so that one person isn't doing things that they shouldn't be doing with it. Bequest sheets, personal messages guide, all of these things need to be notarized. That means that they need to be recognized, signatures and things like that, and letters of instruction for financial institutions. So this is a comprehensive list that I found that I'm sharing with you. So that's it that I have so far that I wanted to share with you. When I go to the next one, we talked about retirement and investments. Those are, other areas that we go into. And that's a 3-week session in itself for both of these, if not more. So those are next things that I would start thinking about, is retirement and investments. I would seek, it's my recommendation. There's so many things that I'm not even aware of. Your taxes, even getting a tax person, again, sometimes we call it, you think that you're saving money by doing things yourself, and, and things like that. And my mom used to have this guy down the street working on a car. And if, he could do most things, but if there was something that he thought he could do and didn't do, then now this person not only has to fix what was wrong in the first place, now they got to go back and fix whatever he did. So sometimes it's not always beneficial to find the least expensive way, or for you to do it yourself, because especially with taxes and things like that, which change every single year. And a lot of times, there's people that are studying these things. You got professionals that help with retirement. You got professionals that help with investments. Everyone's retirement doesn't look the same. All investments aren't beneficial for everybody. So, there's professional people out there to help you. Oftentimes you can find online through your banking, through the credit bureau and things like this, where you can attend webinars and seminars. And then of course there's somebody that's there to we'd like to help you. But that would be my recommendation as next steps. And then we'll talk to Pastor about how we're going to move forward. But this concludes my 3-week stewardship. So if anybody, like I said, if you have any questions, any comments, It doesn't have to be just tonight. If later on, you have something, please feel free to, oh, Sister Burnett, your hand's up.
Yes, there's a question in the chat
Oh, okay.
from Deaconess Smothers.
Deaconess Mothers?
Yes, I said, my question was, why would I need a living trust if everything is that you've just talked about is in my will and filed in the county recorder's office? What's the difference?
So a will. So a
Well,
will.
in California, a will does not evade probate. In
Yeah.
California, wills generally do not evade probate. You need a living trust to evade probate. In California, generally, that's the way it is.
So what I said about the living trust, that if you don't have one, what happens? You go into probate. That's anywhere from 9 months to 2 years. And then there's court costs associated with that. So and it's just beneficial. The assets are available right away. So here's the asset, and there's not, it lives in the trust. So it's not like you're writing a check out to each one of them and then they have to pay inheritance taxes on that. It can be done so that they can receive money, however way you want it to, to happen. I mean, I think anything over $10,000, you have to pay taxes on that. So, again, like I said, I don't have all the answers, but I do know, I feel very confident that a will in California is not enough. Okay.
Is that in all cases? That's what I'm asking. Is it in all cases, or is that just a generalized statement? Because I know well, I'm not going to go into what I know, but it's something different. And it's from an attorney. So I was just asking the question in general, but I understand what both of you are saying in California. Right.
But I mean, and I only know about California, what goes on in California, but a will alone is not enough anymore.
Well, why don't we do one? Which doesn't, I'm just asking, why would a person do a will if a will is not going to substantiate what they're doing and it's legal and binding?
It does.
I'm confused.
Okay, so the will is legal and binding, like you said. But remember, I told you about the loophole. You can go, a will, no one's going to contest, or they can contest the will, but basically you've written it all out and everything, but a will does not, it has to go to the court at that point. Okay, and it says it in the earlier in the presentation, it has to go to probate. It has to go to probate. Yes. Yeah. Yes, Sister Diana. Yes, a will can be contested. I mean, people can try to contest it. I mean, you can contest anything that you want to, and there's ways around that. Sometimes people put it in there. If you contest this, it automatically negates any claim that you have. So I mean, that's what I'm saying, that there's so many. Seek out professional people to get all of those details that can provide you all of this. I don't know all the laws. All I know is what I've experienced and what I've gone through and what I've read and or have been told. First Lady, you had something?
You're muted, honey.
You're muted, First Lady.
Yes, I just want to say you have done an awesome job, like presenting these things to us. And we know that you don't have all of the answers because you stated in the beginning that you are not a professional in this, but you have given us some good things to think about and some very good things to look into. And all you have to do is go on to the internet and drop it in there and it'll tell you everything you need to know. So we thank God for the internet, amen? Because it will give you exactly what you need to know about everything. So I just want to say I have enjoyed the class. And also I just want to go back for a moment. I know you talked about tithes and offering, but our offering, but in the lesson, it says after we make our money, it says that God first gave. And then it says that God's giving is motivated by love. And then it goes on to say, when we give, we simply offer God a small portion of the abundance he has already given to us. Giving is an expression of our thankfulness and praise to God. It comes from a heart of worship and recognizing everything we have and give already, everything we have and give already belongs to God. So all we have belongs to God. And I am simply saying that. Has anybody heard the saying about God to take a little and turn it into a lot? And so I'm just encouraging everybody. Yes, all this is going on, but I'm telling you, if you're having money problems and issues, I'm not talking about what I read or what I heard. I'm talking about what I know. If you pay your tithes, some folks don't believe in paying tithes, but if you pay your tithes, God is faithful and God is just to take that little and turn it into a lot. And I'm like,
well, I hope that you guys found this helpful. And like I said, you know, again, do your own research. It's just like when the pastor gets up and he, you know, goes through the, you know, his sermon and things like that. What he tells you to do, go back and check for yourself. So go back and check for yourself. You know, like I said, it's only beneficial. What the purpose of this is to shine a light, to give you a starting point. That's what this was for, you know, wanted to get you thinking in these terms, because like some people have said already, like, oh, wow, I wish I would have known this a long time ago. I wish I could have done this before. You know, you start with, Maya Angelou says, you do better when you know better. So now you know, and now you can do better. So, and not that you were doing bad, and please don't beat yourself up over anything. This is not something to, you know, like I said, it's to shine a light on, to be helpful, not to shine a light on to be shameful, not to shine a light, because when you don't know something, you just don't know it. And sometimes you don't even know, if you don't know, you don't even know what to ask, you know? So this way, at least this might generate some questions and a little bit more, like Sister Smothers, but fantastic, follow up, just to make sure that you feel comfortable with what, you know, what has been shared or what you've done, you know? I've heard people say, I don't care about it. They can fight over it and stuff like that. But, you know, is that truly what you want them to do? Do you really want to take a good thing and have somebody fighting over it? And, you know, it's not that sometimes even the wills and the trust and stuff like that doesn't eliminate some of the fighting, but if it can help to shine some light. My philosophy is, and thank God I only have one biological child, so she don't have nobody to fight with. But you know, if you have children, and even sometimes you're closer to aunts, closer to your aunt and uncle, because they raised your grandparents or you know, anything like that. But people have a sense of, when somebody dies, I was closer to them. Anybody, I did everything. I'm entitled to this and things like that. And it's just, it kind of helps if you kind of, you know. Like I said, I don't have to, but if I had multiple children, I'd sit them all down and let them know, now, this is what I'm going to do with my estate. And so that there's no surprises, there's nothing, you know, and if you got a problem with this, you come talk to mom in private, we'll talk about it. I don't want you showing out or doing anything like that. But anyway, I've gone over it. I thank God for all the support, everything that you've done. I hope it was helpful, and keep praying for me. I am trying to be a good steward over all aspects of my life as well. So we're just going to pray that all of us become really good stewards and do whatever it is that we can do for the betterment of this world, and continue to pray for those that are less fortunate than we are. Thank you.
Come on, give God some praise, would you, for the wonderful instruction we've had these past 3 weeks. Glory to God. It has brought up some questions, as it was supposed to, pique some interest, cause you to think about and go look at how I might protect myself going forward. A will is going to, as she talks about, the fact that the will go to court, and it will